The guy with $10 million in the bank doesn't drive a new Mercedes, he's probably driving a 10-year-old Honda. And the guy making $40,000 a year? He's the one with the lease payment. That's the ugly truth nobody wants to admit. We've been sold this story that rich people live like kings, private jets, champagne, mansions, but the data from the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances tells a completely different story. The wealthiest retirees actually stopped buying the things that scream "I'm rich" decades ago. And here's the kicker. While you're out there trying to look wealthy, the people who actually are wealthy are quietly doing the opposite. Look, I need to say this clearly. This is not financial advice. I'm a guy on the internet tracking corporate mechanics, not your certified financial planner. Do your own math. I'm Tom, and this is Tom Thinks. I'm here to cut through the Wall Street jargon and give you the real talk on your money, even if it hurts your feelings a little bit. If you're someone who has been grinding to hit that first million, wondering why the finish line keeps moving, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. The consumption trap. Let me paint you a picture. There's a guy named Dave. He's 30 years old, just crossed $1 million in net worth. He's looking at the horizon, thinking, 10 million by 50. Sounds reasonable, right? 5% return on that. He's living on $500,000 a year. But here's the problem, Dave is already spending like he's worth $5 million. He's got the luxury SUV lease, the $2,000 watch, the country club membership he can barely afford. Every time he gets a bonus, he upgrades his lifestyle. And that right there is the trap. The financial industry loves Dave. They want him to believe that spending money is a sign of success. Buy the bigger house, get the premium credit card with the annual fee, sign up for the whole suite of financial products. But here's what most people don't realize. Every dollar Dave spends on status is a dollar that isn't compounding. Let's do the math. If Dave invests that extra $20,000 a year he's burning on status symbols at 7% real return over 20 years, that's over $800,000 he's leaving on the table. The wealthy retirees I've studied didn't get rich by spending money. They got rich by owning assets that produce cash flow, stocks, bonds, real estate, businesses. And the way they stay rich, they ruthlessly cut the expenses that don't produce a return. They stopped buying the things that depreciate. Now look, the irony is painful. The guy with $2 million in the bank is clipping coupons. The guy with $50,000 in credit card debt is buying bottle service. The system is designed to keep you consuming because consumption generates fees, interest, and taxes. Every time you swipe that card, someone on the other end of the transaction is getting richer. And it's not you. So before you can even think about hitting 10 million, you have to stop acting like you've already got it. The wealthy retiree's first rule: never confuse net worth with net spend. How the trap was built. Now let's rewind the tape and look at how we got here. This didn't happen by accident. In the 1980s, something shifted. Before that, the average American saved about 10% of their income. Retirement meant a pension, Social Security, and a paid-off house. But then came the era of financialization. Wall Street realized there was more money to be made by convincing people to trade, borrow, and spend than to save. The first domino was the rise of consumer credit. In 1980, total revolving credit in the U.S. was around $55 billion. By the year 2000, it had ballooned to nearly $700 billion. Today, we're sitting at over $1 trillion in credit card debt alone. The entire system was reprogrammed to turn you into a payment stream. Here's the thing. The wealthy have always understood this. They know that debt is a tool, not a toy. They use leverage to buy assets that appreciate. They don't take out a loan to buy a boat that loses value the second it hits the water. But the marketing machine told you the opposite. Buy now, pay later. You deserve it. Treat yourself. And it worked. The personal savings rate in the U.S. dropped from over 11% in the early 80s to around 3% by the mid-2000s. Meanwhile, the wealthiest 1% saw their net worth multiply. They weren't saving more as a percentage, they were owning more of the productive assets. Stocks, real estate, private equity. And here's where we connect the dots to the current moment. In 2025, Congress passed a budget bill that slashed Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP by hundreds of billions of dollars to pay for tax cuts that disproportionately benefit the wealthy. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office projected that 17 million people would lose health insurance. 1.2 million jobs would be lost, and 51,000 additional people would die each year. But for the ultra-wealthy, this is just a speed bump. They've already insulated themselves. They don't rely on government safety nets. They own the hospitals, the insurance companies, and the food producers. When the system cuts benefits for the middle class, the wealthy buy more assets at discounted prices. The game was rigged from the start. The 10 spending sins. Now let's get specific. Here are 10 things wealthy retirees stopped buying to stay rich, and the psychology behind each one. Number 1. New cars. The average new car loses 20 to 30% of its value in the first year. Wealthy retirees buy 3 to 5-year-old vehicles and drive them for a decade. They know transportation is a utility, not an identity. Number 2. Big houses. After the kids leave, they downsize. Not because they have to, but because square footage costs money to heat, cool, insure, and maintain. That money goes into investments instead. Number 3. Luxury brand clothing. The wealthy understand that fabric doesn't have an ROI. They buy quality basics, not logo-heavy status symbols. Number 4. Premium entertainment packages. They cut cable, use antenna or streaming, and don't pay for a dozen subscriptions they never watch. Number 5. Extended warranties. This is pure profit for corporations. The math says you lose on average over time. Wealthy retirees self-insure for small items. Number 6. Financial advisor fees. They either use low-cost index funds or negotiate flat fees. They don't pay 1% of assets annually for mediocre advice. A 1% fee on a $2 million portfolio is $20,000 a year. Over 30 years, that's over $1 million in lost compounding. Number 7. Frequent upgrades of electronics. They don't buy the new iPhone every year. They run devices until they break. Number 8. Timeshares and vacation clubs. These are mathematically terrible investments disguised as luxury. Number 9. Private school tuition for grown children. They help, but they don't bankrupt themselves funding adult lifestyles. Number 10. The biggest one of all. High-interest consumer debt. Wealthy retirees almost never carry a credit card balance. They pay off statement balances in full every month. Think about it. The average credit card interest rate is over 20%. If you carry a $10,000 balance for a year, you're giving the bank $2,000 for nothing. That's $2,000 that could be compounding in an index fund. The system wants you to pay interest. The system wants you to finance your lifestyle. The wealthy retirees opted out of that transaction completely. The asset ownership model. So what do wealthy retirees do instead? They flip the equation completely. Instead of spending money on things that depreciate, they focus on acquiring assets that produce cash flow. Here's the mental model shift that separates the wealthy from everyone else. The average person thinks, I earn income, I spend on lifestyle, I save what's left. The wealthy retiree thinks, I earn income, I acquire assets, those assets produce more income, and I only spend a fraction of that income. It's a closed loop that feeds itself. Let me give you a concrete example of the arbitrage. Imagine a wealthy retiree with a $5 million portfolio. She generates around $200,000 a year in dividends and interest, assuming a 4% yield. Here's the secret. She doesn't spend all of that. She reinvests a portion to keep the portfolio growing. She lives on maybe $150,000 a year, and she structures her spending to avoid paying unnecessary taxes. She uses tax-advantaged accounts, municipal bonds, and capital gains harvesting to keep her effective tax rate low. Meanwhile, the typical middle-class retiree is withdrawing from their 401k and paying ordinary income tax on every dollar. Then they're spending that after-tax money on expenses that don't build wealth. The difference isn't just about how much money they have, it's about how they think about money. The wealthy treat money as a tool that should work for them. The middle class treats money as something to be spent. Now look, I'm not saying you need $5 million to start, but the strategy is the same at any scale. You start by identifying the leaks in your spending, the 10 things we just covered, and redirecting that cash flow into assets. Even an extra $500 a month invested in a simple total stock market index fund over 20 years at 8% return grows to nearly $300,000. That's real money. And you get there by not buying the new car, not carrying the credit card balance, not paying for the premium cable package. The wealthy retiree's playbook is painfully boring. It's not about finding the next hot stock. It's about stopping the bleeding. Building the cash flow engine. Now let's walk through how this strategy actually unfolds for someone grinding toward that $10 million goal. This isn't a step-by-step instruction manual because I'm not your certified financial planner, but the analytical framework is clear. First, you establish a baseline. You calculate your actual monthly spending, not your budgeted spending. There's always a gap. The average household spends about 30% more than they realize on non-essential items. That's the first pool of cash to redirect. Second, you focus on the biggest levers. Housing, transportation, and food typically account for 60 to 70% of spending for most households. Wealthy retirees I've studied optimize these three categories ruthlessly. They live in a house that's 30% smaller than what they could afford. They drive cars that are 5 years old. They cook at home 90% of the time. Not because they're cheap, but because they value the compounding of that money more than the temporary comfort of a bigger house or a newer car. Third, you build the asset base with those savings. The traditional approach uses a diversified portfolio of low-cost index funds. The empirical data from decades of market history shows that a simple mix of 60% U.S. stocks, 20% international stocks, and 20% bonds has delivered about 7 to 8% annualized returns over the long term. But here's where the wealthy retiree separates from the crowd. They don't panic sell during downturns. They rebalance. They buy more when prices are low. They treat bear markets as sales, not disasters. Fourth, you layer in tax efficiency. You maximize tax-advantaged accounts like 401ks, IRAs, and HSAs before you put money in taxable brokerage accounts. You use tax loss harvesting to offset gains. You hold assets for over a year to qualify for long-term capital gains rates. Fifth, and this is the most overlooked part, you automate everything. The wealthy retirees set up automatic transfers from their checking account to their investment accounts on the same day every month. They never see the money, so they never miss it. The whole process becomes invisible. And here's the beautiful irony. The less you think about spending, the more wealth you build. The system wants you to make active decisions about consumption because that's where they extract fees. The wealthy retiree makes one passive decision to save, and then lets time and compounding do the work. The compound mindset shift. Let me close with something philosophical because the math only works if the mindset changes first. I've been tracking these mechanics for over a decade. I've interviewed dozens of retirees with net worths north of $10 million. And the one thing they all share is not a specific investment strategy. It's a relationship with money that most people will never develop. They see money as stored time and energy. Every dollar they spend is a dollar that could have been working for them. So they are ruthless about where that energy goes. They stopped buying things that signal wealth because they don't need to signal. They already have it, and they know that the people most impressed by a luxury car or a designer handbag are usually the ones who can't afford it. The wealthy retiree lives in a world of quiet accumulation. They don't need the validation. They have the balance sheet. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, which one of these 10 spending categories is the hardest for you to cut? Is it the new car? The premium subscriptions? The dining out? Be honest. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this wake-up call. Someone who is grinding their way toward a goal but keeps sabotaging themselves with lifestyle inflation. Because here's the truth that took me years to understand. The system is designed to keep you consuming. The media, the advertisers, the banks, the credit card companies, they're all on the same side. It's not your side. The only way to win is to opt out of the consumption arms race entirely. Not by earning more, but by needing less. The wealthy retiree figured this out decades ago. They stopped buying the things that made them look rich, and they started buying the things that made them actually rich. Assets, cash flow, time. And now you know their playbook. Go look at your balance sheet with fresh eyes. Your future self will thank you.
Found this interesting? Subscribe to the channel. Give this video a like, share it out, and drop your questions or ideas in the comments. Until our next adventure.